The U.S. curriculum that has been published is available for free on the U.S. Soccer website. If you go in the coaching education section, I believe it's under coaching resources. You can download the entirety of the curriculum to review. We wanted to highlight some specific slides just to bring some attention towards what we're focusing on with our players. Some brief background on the curriculum. It's been led by Claudia Reyna and Dr. Javier Perez on behalf of U.S. Soccer, along with their coaching education department and national staff coaches. The research has been conducted through various academies worldwide, and a heavy influence on this curriculum has been the youth system at Barcelona and that style of play. And we should also, I guess, give credit from a historical perspective on the Dutch influence on affecting Barcelona's style, starting with Johan Cruyff and later Louis van Gaal. There's been dozens of Dutch coaches who've come into the Barcelona system and affected the Barcelona system. So many would argue that Barcelona is the quote-unquote the best way to play, the romantic style to play. I guess many of us coaches have a decision to make with our players and how we're going to effectively play the game. So number one, we have the opportunity to protect the goal, which we see as a common style of the Northern European teams. So very organized, numbers behind the ball, defending the goal. And a different way to play is to not necessarily protect the goal, but to protect the ball. So more of a possession-oriented style, an attacking style, circulating the ball as quickly as possible and trying to move defenders with the movement of the ball, open up spaces, and then attacking behind, going to goal, and moving forward. So this build-up style of play, this possession style of play on one hand, or a counter-attacking style of play, sucking the other defenders, pulling the other defenders away from their own goal, opening up space, and then looking to play in behind. So from a fundamental perspective, the groups, each team, each club, and each country needs to decide, hey, what will our style of play be? And the influence of this coaching curriculum that has been put out is heavily influenced by the style of play of Barcelona, again, heavily influenced by the Dutch. In order to give some perspective on this curriculum and how Barcelona influenced the curriculum, so we have this all in context, we have to just briefly identify, I guess, some various styles of play. So one thing that we'll see is this kind of decision that coaches make with teams, directors make with clubs, national staff influence their national team program with is what style of play will we utilize in order to play our game. And one trend we see in Europe, from Northern Europe, is this whole summary phrase of we're going to protect the goal. So this style of play of protecting the goal, kind of a counter-attacking style of play. So we're going to put numbers behind the ball, put players in front of our goal. We're going to be very organized, eliminate spaces which teams can penetrate, and make sure we do not allow the ball to get in behind us so teams do not have an open look at our goal for scoring opportunities. Opposite of the Northern European teams, again, this is generalizing, the Southern European teams specific to Spain, Portugal, and the like, the concentration is not necessarily to protect the goal. The concentration is to protect the ball. So a possession-oriented style, a build-up style of play, an attacking style of play, where players are pushing forward, on and off the ball, getting into attacking spaces, unlocking defenses with dribbling penetration, passing and movements off of the ball, and this whole philosophy of keeping the ball, keeping it away from the opponents, being proactive, attacking the goal. So the skill required to do that is incredible. And the influence of this coaching curriculum from this Barcelona style, again influenced from the Dutch, is on this quick ball circulation, technical style of play where there's a possession-oriented attack. If you take note on the bottom of the slide, you can see a link where you can download the entirety of the curriculum for your review at no charge. It's on ussoccer.com's website under the coaching education section. The next slide relates to taking the 4 key components and discusses how we implement those components into an appropriate training environment to make sure we're developing our players. So when we think about tactics, we're thinking about decisions. So we take game understanding, and we want to make sure we're doing what we can as coaches to affect and enhance the game understanding of our players. The tremendous benefit that we've had the opportunity to take advantage of with our current generation of players is really trying to poke and prod and beg and bribe and try to get our players to watch more professional games. Get out to college games in the area. We have a lot of great colleges locally here inside Michigan where our players can watch a higher level of game. We have a very successful PDL franchise where top college players are playing in the summer in hopes of getting drafted in the MLS. That's been very successful. Beyond getting to a game and watching it live, the availability of professional soccer teams on network television, cable television, and the accessibility of soccer at a professional level into players' homes has expanded exponentially in the last 5-10 years. So the more our players watch professional players and watch their quote-unquote heroes make decisions, and they can take those decisions and take those examples of technique and apply them into their own game as they've been modeled by the pros, the better off our players are going to be. So in relating to our club, outside of watching professional players play and PDL players and college players, the game understanding is really enhanced by experiments, trial and error. Are our players willing to take risks and make various decisions? And what is the feedback? Do our players and coaches have this positive future mentality when they're talking to their teammates and giving feedback, and our coaches are talking to players and giving feedback? If I kick the ball out of bounds and our team gets the throw, I certainly know that I've made a mistake. But that doesn't mean that our players need to be beat up over the mistake verbally or chastised for the mistake. What we want to do is talk in a positive future tone. So next time, maybe we can turn our hips and shoulders and follow through to the inside. Maybe next time we can receive the ball across our body so our preparation touch does not take us out of bounds. A couple examples there. So the game understanding is really enhancing the training ground through communication, and we're trying to really expand our players' awareness, their vision, and allow them to give each other feedback. Coaches and players certainly communicating with question and answers so that we are taking care of expanding our game understanding of our players and developing our players. I'd like to bring up an example to illustrate the tactics and how it relates to our players. I'm thinking of our younger ages in our club right now, our 8s to our 12s age groups, and we're working on the tactic, for example, of passing the ball around the back or passing the ball from a backline player, a defender, quote unquote, into a central midfield player. And if that pass does not work, if it's not completed, if it's intercepted, we are quite liable to give up a counterattack and potentially give up a goal. So if we put a cultural influence of winning on our players versus development at this young age, there may be a fear factor that our players feel, an anxiety. So if we're teaching them to keep a ball and possess a ball and take care of the ball versus playing a safe pass over the other defender's head, playing a long ball, if we're going to teach our players to play this possession-oriented style and use their tactics and their technique, when we make mistakes, there is an anxiety the players can feel depending on the culture of our club, with our coaches, with our parents, with teammates. And if we are playing to win now, our players will not learn this tactic of keeping the possession and playing the ball around the back and playing into our central midfielders' feet. And this passing-oriented style will be sacrificed because our culture does not allow for it. The player is playing in fear, the player is playing with anxiety, and the player will essentially make safe decisions, conservative decisions, and will sacrifice some of their tactical development, some of their creative style, and essentially harm their own development in the long run. In the short term, we may experience more success with that team, and we may win a couple more games because we're playing a vertical ball down the field and stretching out the other team's defense. But we're not emphasizing tactical development as much, and we are not exercising and developing technical development to the degree that we ought to at those young ages, because we are involved in this win now culture. The next key component that's critical for us is our technique. The golden age of technical skill acquisition is ages 6 through 12. So at these ages, we overemphasize our technical skill work, and we really want to put our emphasis on a strong learning curve of our players to learn the different techniques that they'll carry on through the rest of their playing days. We will sacrifice complex tactical decisions and organization with our younger players and overemphasize the technique because of this technical skill acquisition window, ages 6 through 12. It's critical for our players to learn the various techniques on the ball. We want to be comfortable on the ball, and there's certainly some emphasis that we need to provide at certain ages, and it's much more difficult for our players to acquire techniques, dribbling, striking, receiving, and so on, as they get older. So we have some parents who will sometimes ask questions, why are we not organized on kickoff plays or corner kicks, or why don't our U8s and U9s set up a wall properly to defend a set piece? And we certainly make a decision with our staff and want to not ignore tactics and not ignore organization. We don't want our players being outright confused during matches, but we certainly want to overemphasize time on the ball and mastering skills with technique. Relating the fitness element to our players, it certainly varies based on the ages of players in our club. I'm kind of covering this with a broad brush with our U8s through our U18s here, but in general, we do not want to spend much time on isolated wind sprints and high mileage long runs while we're at training. On non-training days, our older players are responsible to maintain fitness levels for our top teams. For our younger players, as well as our older players in the training environment, we want our fitness to be done in a very soccer-specific way, and that is through activities and small-sided games that replicate the match. Our players jumping for heading the ball to clear across, our players accelerating to pressure the ball to defend, or accelerating in an overlap run to combine, or accelerating off the dribble. So when we work on fitness, we want it to be relevant to the player. We want it to be relative to the game and the context of the game situation, and we'd like them to be doing it on the soccer ball and around the soccer ball. So it's not some different event. Now, in addition to our soccer-specific training where fitness is employed, we recognize that there are experts there, and this is certainly a science, and there's experts that we want to work with, and in our case it's now the Barwis Methods group, and we want to help our players learn a more efficient manner of movement where we're focusing on running mechanics, core work, strengthening the hamstrings, and further injury prevention activities for our players to make sure we maintain our health, and teaching our players a proper warm-up and recovery pre and post workout. So we want to provide that option for our players relative to the physical component, and those opportunities are available beyond the soccer field and in addition to our diet of soccer training with each team.